We're all rolling.
Thank you everyone for making it out. I'm actually really impressed at the crowd here, so thank you very much. And people keep streaming in, so that's good. So, can people hear me in the back, by the way? Is my voice projecting sufficiently? Thumbs up if you can hear me. Great. Awesome. So, this panel, as was advertised, is Furry Psychology. Everything there is to know about furries in 90 minutes or less. Or my alternative title, which is the Canadian government is paying for this. This tiny little logo right here means the Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council of Canada has made a terrible mistake. Oh shit, it's being recorded. Okay. They made a very, very good decision in who they decided to fund. Right. So, good, my jokes are landing. This is good. Yes. All right. So the plan for today, I'm going to introduce myself really quickly to the people in here who don't know who I am. And who the heck is this person who's talking about furries and statistics? I'll talk about some furry demographics. So this is who are these folks called furries, what do they look like, that sort of thing. Talking a lot about fandom content. So this section is all about the idiosyncrasies, the uniqueness of the furry fandom and some of the weird little quirks about the furry fandom. Talking about the psychology. So why do psychologists care so much, or at least the 4 or 5 of us who are doing this, why do we care so much? And how have we convinced or tricked other psychologists into caring about furries as well? We'll talk about some of the future projects that we have going and some of the things we're looking to do in the next couple of years as we do furry research. And then finishing up, if time permits, with a Q&A session at the end. So I'm going to suggest, if possible, when it comes to Q&A, if you could hold your questions till the end just to make sure I get sort of through everything. Unless there's an absolutely pressing question that's very simple that I can answer in a couple of words. If you want some long interpretive question, maybe hold it off until the very end. Cool. So, who am I? I am Dr. Courtney Plante, a whole bunch of letters after my name. Good-looking fellow. This, by the way, is my official picture on the American Psychological Association website. That is Dr. Courtney Plante. Oh, you can see why I don't have many collaborators. This is also what my students see before they actually sign up for my class. This is who is teaching your class. So, I study fantasy. I study what happens when people become immersed in fantasy worlds. I study fantasy activities like video games, and in particular, I did my dissertation on violent video games and how people become immersed in violent video games. I study avatars and why people create avatars in these fantasy worlds. And I also, as sort of a hobby, study this group of people you might have heard of before, furries. That's something that I also do in my off time. But the most important part of this slide for you to consider is this bit right here. Because ever since last year, I became a doctor. And in my dissertation, I did thank furries, the entire furry fandom as a whole, because it was furries and this research that I've been doing with furries that have helped to motivate me to push through and finish up. And it's also because of furries that this picture now exists. I imagine Waterloo will be asking for my PhD back in 3 months. So, I'm contemplating using that one. I do use that when I teach my class. I do throw that up occasionally for a joke. So this is the Nuka part of my name. I am a furry, as many of you have probably heard. I got into this fandom watching Pokemon. I found webcomics. I found, through that, chat rooms. Eventually led me to a regional furry group, which led me to do research at conventions like Anthropomorphic, like Furry Equinox and Furry Fiesta, and ultimately to the Dr. Cat you see standing before you. I don't do it alone though. I am part of the International Anthropomorphic Research Project, who has this really big sounding name because this gets us grant money. It sounds important, it doesn't have the word furry in it. This group of researchers consists of Dr. Kathleen Gerbasi, Dr. Stephen Grayson, Dr. Sharon Roberts, and our newest member, Carlin Brugel, who are all part of this research team. Interestingly, for the longest time, I was the only furry on the team. Carlin is actually the newest member of our team, and she is also a furry. But what I've noticed is that as we've done more research on furries, very slowly my non-furry collaborators are starting to get a little more furry. Dr. Gerbasi bought a fursuit recently. Dr. Grayson has a badge, you'll notice, a persona badge. Of course, Carlin has her own persona, Traj. And Dr. Sharon Roberts actually changes her persona every con she goes to. I think right now she's a coconut. She's She's also never allowed to see this video because she will kill me.
Does the coconut have an A?
I don't know. I don't know if she just goes by Dr. Shazzy in coconut form. But.
Dr. Coconut?
Yes. So, we at the IARP do science. We study furries and how furries are similar and different from other groups. We're like the Mythbusters if the Mythbusters were furry and didn't have a budget to buy explosions. Science. So we do social science, which usually consists not of less explosions, but more surveys and questionnaires that we give out at conventions like this one. We do experiments on furries, so we sometimes do manipulations to see what they do. We measure their reaction times, their accuracy. We conduct focus groups, so we've done a number of focus groups at this con alone, where we get a bunch of furries into a room and talk to them about specific subjects. We do longitudinal studies. We're currently in our 3rd year of an ongoing longitudinal study where we track furries over time to see how they change. And we do, as I mentioned, convention-based research. We started out at Anthropomorphic several years ago, where a very brave Dr. Gavassi had to convince a very dubious-looking Kage that we were real and we were doing legitimate research.
Yes, he does look like that.
He does look exactly like this, by the way, yes.
There's no why.
So the research that I'm going to be showing you has ended up in a number of different places. It's wound up on our website, which we run and maintain for furries, primarily to be able to use our research for things like combating negative media, for furries to be able to, a number of furries have said they've come out to their parents by showing them some of the data from our research and showing them that, hey, this isn't a bad thing. It makes it into psychological journals. So we've had a number of significant publications in the psychological literature. Any of these you can pick up, by the way, at our research table. If you are really bored and love looking at pages of statistics, you can pick these up. And also in the media. So in the last few months, especially, we've been contacted by a number of different media sources who've either directly interviewed us or used our statistics in one form or another to inform their research. And it's very good to see that the media is starting to become much more informed in the way they talk about furries, not just sort of going back to the CSI episode or going back to some stereotype they heard about 5 years ago. They're becoming much more intelligent in the way they discuss furries, and it's encouraging to see, and we like to be egotistical and say that it's in part because of the research we're doing. It is. So the data I'm presenting today isn't just from one study. We didn't just go to a couple of furries and ask them what they know. It's a culmination of more than 5 years of work, more than 25 separate studies, 800 plus pages of ethics forms that we had to go through, most of which were from the porn study that we're running today.
Okay.
More than 20,000 participants from more than 70 different countries, and more than 500 or 5 million individual pieces of data that I've entered by hand. So, and of course across 10 accepted publications, more. I think we have a couple in press right now. But the short version of this is that there are a lot of furries in this research. So, if you've seen this, hands up if you've seen this talk before, or seen me give a talk before. So many of you, and there's a bunch of new faces as well, good to see. So if you've seen this talk before, I'm happy to say there's a whole bunch of really cool new data in this. This is actually stuff, there's more new stuff here than old stuff. So there's going to be a lot of new stuff that's really interesting, and we've actually already got a number of significant publications off of this new data. The biggest one has to do with comparison groups. So for the first time, we're able to compare furries to some really interesting groups of people, including anime fans, and showing how furries are similar to and different from anime fans. Fantasy sport fans, for those who don't know, these are people who like sports, but wish they were more like spreadsheets. Basically, taking a sport and designing your own fantasy team to compete against your friend's fantasy team. You use real-world statistics to decide whose team won for that season. So, we're comparing a number of our studies here, furries to these different groups. Anime fans in particular, we compared it to furries to convention-going anime fans at ACON last year, and to online anime fans. We accidentally got about 4,500 anime fans to do a survey. Thank you, Reddit. With furries, it was 4chan. With Reddit, with anime fans, it's Reddit. So this is the.